This is the al-maidah initiative, conversation without compromise.
In Islam, and I was a Sunni, not a Shia, so they're completely different, I had to be subservient to John, just like I had to be subservient to Muhammad, even though I didn't actually like Muhammad's character. But I had to suppress those ideas because I was like, I'm a human. I'm a slave to God. And if I oppose God, that's from Satan, and Satan scares me just as much as God. and just it does eradicate a sense of individual responsibility because and causes paranoia that you think that there's some spirits constantly trying to control you every time you have a conscious idea, like a alarm in your mind, a red alert, like danger.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a good thing. Jump off the train now. That you have to suppress it. And I think every single mujahid, every single ISIS member, every single radical has had to deal with this.
That's an interesting use of that word because the Apostle Paul in the book of Romans uses the term everyone suppresses the truth of God in unrighteousness, right? So it's this thing that you're observing in people where it's like you always have these moments where you have this isn't right, but then you'll have to push it down, right? And whether that's you're joining a religious cult or you're stealing money from your job, right? Whatever you're doing,
unless you're a narcissist, I think those type of personalities and psychopaths.
Yeah, I think they exist, but I think even then, there's like at least a logical conversation about it, right? And that you still have a inner dialogue is like, no, and you kind of like, I even think people like that kind of have a path that you kind of go one way or the other, because, like for me, I tend to be pretty clinical about things and not especially empathetic, right? So I could easily see myself going down a path where I'm completely unconcerned about people. But I'm pushed beyond that, right? By the word of God, by things in my life but I know that I could push those. You sure you should be doing this moments down?
Yeah, you could violate people if you wanted to, but you choose not to. But atheists do the same.
Yeah.
They and agnostics, and you can stop. But when you allow a 7th century ideology control you, and you can't, if you're not rebellious enough to fight it, it's going to take over you, and then that's why you're going to long for death, because you're living a miserable existence.
Because you've kind of allowed yourself to be given things. There's a series called Man in the High Castle. Have you ever seen it?
Yes, I've seen it.
Okay, so spoilers for Man in the High Castle, season 4, episode 10. There's that amazing moment in the last episode where you've seen the finale, right?
I can't remember it so well, and I don't know if I liked it. Is it a spin off World War II?
Yeah.
Actually, that was really good. Or was that another show?
So one of the main characters, right, at the end, he's like basically got to the point where he does not have the Nazis breathing down his throat anymore, but then he's still putting together plans for another Holocaust in America, and they're on a train. He's on a train with his wife that's about to crash, and his wife says to him, "John, this is evil," and he says, "I know, and I don't know how to stop." Right, so I think
I've been there.
Yeah.
Because even John used to say to me, because I hated wearing the hijab in Texas, while he was in prison, so he went to prison in 2003. We left Syria because I was pregnant at 21. I was 20, and then I didn't want to have a child born in Syria. I was being opportunistic, and I was like, well, I really do like it. Like, I wanted to live in America. But John thought it was the Dajjal, the evil, the Freemason land of Satan. He was obviously mentally imbalanced, but he had such a deep hatred for the government. And his dad had served 30 years in the U.S. Air Force. So he had a very stern upbringing, and didn't see his dad. It's really complicated with him. But he didn't love America, and he was a traitor. But the problem he had with me is that when I came to America and I learned American values, I was like, I'm missing out. And because I had grown tired of all the rules, I was sick of how I'd lost any choice in my life, because now my husband was literally telling me what I can and can't do or think, and he was trying anyway. But it was an internal war. In our home, it was war, but outside we would act as if we're on the same side. And I think a lot of couples who are not so happy have to put up this front. And we stayed in the marriage together for 10 years because we had children, and I had nowhere to go. I didn't have family I could reach out to for help because they didn't want me. They didn't want me from the beginning, from the time I was born. And they made it so clear too. So it's not healthy for any child to grow up knowing they're an accident, unwanted, and it's as bad as a child being born into drug addicts and or being abused. It's a different psychological abuse because of the culture.
There's nowhere to go. It reminds me, another pop culture reference here. You watch Lost?
Yes.
Okay, so spoiler alert, Lost season 6.
I love your commentaries on Netflix.
There's a point in Lost season 6 where there's kind of there's this sort of shady faction, and Ben Linus does something wrong and then says, and he starts walking towards the other faction, and they said, Ben, where are you going? He says, I'm going to join the others. And they're saying, why? It's because no one else will have me.
Yes, exactly.
And it's such a fascinating journey, because it parallels the book of Genesis in some ways, because Eve is in this situation where the temptation of Satan is, if you will just do this, then your eyes will be opened and you'll have kind of freedom and knowledge. Yeah, knowledge of all things, right?
Oh, was it knowledge?
It's knowledge, because
it wasn't about living forever.
You already had that.
Oh, yeah.
So it was about knowledge.
Oh, yeah, right. I remember.
And so it's almost like it's a kind of parallel promise, right? That it's like your whole life has been a quest for freedom, and Islam, ironically, although it may be hard, it seems for you to be just kind of this quest for freedom, right? It's something that promised you freedom, but in fact enslaved you. And the same with...
Well, it promised me freedom in the afterlife.
For sure.
Because freedom wasn't something I even was raised to believe. It wasn't a value. It's devalued. And it wasn't until I came to America that I really valued it and did want it in this life, because I got tired of being run down and not having choice in my life. So yeah, I was disillusioned with the rules. But yeah, exactly what you were saying about Islam. They'll accept everyone and anyone. You just say one declaration and you're in the religion and you can never leave, otherwise you're going to die. And you're going to be in hell forever. So if you really believe in hell and you believe that God is sadistic enough to send people to hell for small things, no matter how good they were, that alone was very disturbing to me. I empathized with the story of Abu Talib, and he never became a Muslim. He was Muhammad's uncle, and he gave up everything he had, all his wealth, all his family ties, everything he had that made him one of the most respected and dignified people in his society. He sacrificed it all for Muhammad. Yet he still, when he died, he wouldn't accept Islam. And then the hadith says, or the revelation says, that he'll receive the lightest punishment in hell, which is having iron put at the bottom of his soul, and he'll burn like that for eternity.
Right. So
when I was young, I didn't question it, and that really scared the life out of me, because I thought, this life is hell for me, and I don't want to go to a place that's worse for eternity. But then when I was older, I was like, I'm more merciful than that. I would never do that to anybody, not even to my greatest enemy. So it wasn't until I was 25, and I really think that point in my life, as growing into a mature person and as a mother, my priorities shifted a great deal, and And again, that dislike that I had for God when I was a little girl, because he sucked the life out, the fun out of Western life for me, and I couldn't integrate, I was feeling that again, because I wanted to integrate with American society, because I love their values. I love the US Constitution. I remember when I first came across the Declaration of Independence, and I bawled my eyes out, because I scolded John, because I was like, you grew up with this. And I was oblivious to these ideas: life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And it was all I wanted, like so much, not just for myself, but for my children.